In a distant corner of the universe, far beyond the reaches of Earth's most powerful telescopes, an alien species known as the Vraxians had long observed humanity with quiet disdain. To them, humans were primitive creatures, fragile, chaotic, and unpredictable. The Vraxians prided themselves on their advanced technology, structured society, and ability to conquer weaker civilizations without much effort. For centuries they had watched Earth from afar, studying its inhabitants like scientists observing insects in a jar. They saw no reason to interfere directly. After all, why waste resources on such insignificant beings? But everything changed, one fateful day when something extraordinary happened. Something that would shake the very foundations of the galaxy. It began with a strange signal detected by the Vraxian surveillance network. At first it seemed like random interference, perhaps caused by solar flares or cosmic radiation. However, as their sensors analyzed the data more closely, the truth became clear. This was no natural phenomenon. The energy readings were coming from Earth itself, but they were unlike anything recorded before. Massive power surges emanated from what appeared to be human-made structures hidden deep within Earth's atmosphere. The Vraxian Council immediately convened aboard their flagship, hovering just outside Earth's orbit to discuss the implications. As the Council members gathered around a holographic display showing real-time images of Earth, tension filled the room. What they saw defied logic. The sky above Earth, the vast expanse of blue that humans called home, began to ripple as though it were made of liquid. Slowly, almost imperceptibly at first, the fabric of the atmosphere split apart, revealing something that left even the most seasoned Vraxian commanders speechless. Emerging from behind the veil of Earth's skies were enormous star destroyers, colossal metallic ships bristling with weapon systems so advanced that they dwarfed anything. In the Vraxian arsenal, these vessels glinted menacingly under the light of the sun, casting shadows over entire continents below. The Vraxians stared in stunned silence. How could such a young, seemingly primitive species have developed technology capable of creating these monstrosities? And why had they kept it hidden for so long? Questions raced through their minds, but one thing was certain. Humanity had just revealed a level of sophistication that none of them could have anticipated. Admiral Zorak, the leader of the Vraxian fleet, clenched his fists tightly as he tried to process what he was seeing. His people had always relied on intimidation to subjugate others, using their superior firepower to instill fear. But now, faced with something greater than themselves, they felt an emotion they rarely experienced: terror. Meanwhile, back on Earth, life continued as usual for most people. Unaware of the events unfolding high above their heads, ordinary citizens went about their daily routines. Farmers tilled their fields, children played in parks, and commuters rushed to work. Only a select few knew about the existence of the Star Destroyers, the result of decades of secret collaboration between Earth's nations. Hidden beneath mountains, buried in deserts, and concealed within oceans, teams of scientists, engineers, and military personnel had worked tirelessly to prepare for this moment. Their goal was simple yet daunting: to ensure that humanity would never again be vulnerable to threats from beyond the stars. At the heart of this operation was Dr. Elena Carter, a brilliant physicist whose groundbreaking research had paved the way for many of the technologies embedded in the Star Destroyers. She had dedicated her life to understanding the mysteries of quantum mechanics and harnessing its potential for practical applications. Her work on plasma cannons and quantum propulsion engines had transformed theoretical ideas into reality, giving Earth a fighting chance against any extraterrestrial adversary. Yet despite her genius, Dr. Carter remained humble, driven not by personal ambition but by a desire to protect her planet and its people. The decision to keep Earth's advancements secret had not been easy. Many argued that transparency might deter hostile forces, while others feared that revealing too much could provoke unnecessary conflict. In the end, humanity chose caution, opting to remain silent until the time was right. That time had finally come. As the Star Destroyers emerged from their hiding places, Earth's leaders prepared to make a bold statement to the galaxy. President Hayes, standing in a secure underground bunker alongside top military officials, drafted a message that would soon echo across every frequency in space. To any who observe us, the message read, "Know this, we are not victims. We are survivors, and we will defend our home at any cost." When the transmission reached the Vraxian flagship, Admiral Zorak listened intently, his expression unreadable. He had expected arrogance, perhaps even aggression, but the tone of the message surprised him. It was calm, resolute, and unwavering, a declaration of strength rather than desperation. For the first time in his long career, Zorak felt unsure of how to proceed. Attacking Earth outright seemed suicidal, given the firepower displayed by the Yarm star destroyers, yet retreating entirely would undermine the authority of the Vraxian Empire. He ordered his fleet to maintain position, buying himself time to consider his next move. Back on Earth, preparations continued at a feverish pace. Soldiers trained rigorously, pilots practiced maneuvers in state-of-the-art simulators, and technicians fine-tuned every system aboard the star destroyers. Morale among the crew was high, fueled by a shared sense of purpose. Unlike other civilizations, which often prioritized diplomacy and compromise, humans understood that peace sometimes required strength. They knew that showing weakness invited exploitation, and they refused to let history repeat itself. As Captain Marcus Drake, commander of the lead star destroyer, addressed his team, his words resonated deeply. "We didn't build these ships to conquer. We built them to survive. Today we prove to the universe that humanity is not to be underestimated." Word of Earth's transformation spread quickly throughout the galaxy. Alien empires, accustomed to bullying weaker worlds, found themselves questioning their dominance. Whispers of fear rippled through star systems as news of humanity's star destroyers reached even the most remote corners of space. Some species saw hope in Earth's defiance, viewing humans as potential allies against oppressive regimes. Others, however, viewed them as dangerous upstarts who needed to be dealt with swiftly. Regardless of opinion, one fact remained undeniable. Humanity had changed the rules of the game. For the Vraxians, the revelation of Earth's true capabilities marked the beginning of a crisis unlike any they had faced before. Their empire, built on fear and control, suddenly seemed fragile. Every member of their council knew that failure to respond appropriately could spell disaster, not just for their mission near Earth, but for their entire way of life. As Admiral Zorak paced the bridge of his flagship, his mind raced with possibilities. Should they attempt negotiations, launch a preemptive strike, or retreat entirely and regroup? Whatever decision he made, one thing was clear: humanity had forced them to confront a harsh truth. They were no longer the undisputed rulers of the galaxy. As the hours ticked by, the tension between Earth and the Vraxian fleet grew palpable. The star destroyers loomed ominously in the sky, their presence a constant reminder of humanity's newfound power. On board the lead vessel, Captain Drake monitored the situation closely, ready to act at a moment's notice. He knew that the coming days would test not only his leadership, but also the resolve of every man and woman under his command. Humanity had taken its first step into the galactic stage, and there was no turning back now. Little did anyone realize, however, that this was only the beginning of a story that would redefine the balance of power in the universe and cement humanity's place among the stars. The Vraxian flagship hung silently in the cold void of space, its sleek metallic hull reflecting the faint light of distant stars. Inside, Admiral Zorak paced the command deck, his mind racing with questions and fears. Never before had he encountered a species like humanity, primitive one moment, impossibly advanced the next. The star destroyers looming above Earth were not just weapons of war, they were symbols of defiance, proof that humans were unlike any other civilization the Vraxians had ever encountered. For centuries, the Vraxians had relied on their reputation for dominance to subjugate weaker species. They didn't need brute force when intimidation alone could achieve their goals. But now, faced with an adversary that refused to cower, Zorak felt a gnawing sense of unease. His crew, usually disciplined and efficient, struggled to maintain composure. Engineers scrambled to recalibrate sensors, trying to understand how humanity had developed such technology. Diplomats whispered urgently among themselves, debating whether negotiation was even possible with a species so unpredictable. Fear began to seep into the air, unspoken but undeniable. The Varaxians had always believed themselves superior, destined to rule over lesser beings. Yet here they were, paralyzed by uncertainty, staring at a planet that had hidden its strength until the perfect moment to reveal it. Meanwhile, aboard the lead star destroyer Aegis, Captain Marcus Drake stood on the bridge, surveying the scene below. Through the massive viewport, he could see Earth's blue-green surface stretched out beneath him, peaceful and vibrant despite the tension in the air. Behind him, rows of control panels blinked with activity as technicians monitored every system, ensuring the ship was ready for whatever might come next. Drake exuded calm confidence, his sharp eyes scanning the screens and displays. He knew the stakes. Failure meant not just defeat but annihilation. Humanity's survival depended on the decisions made in this moment. Drake turned to address his crew, his voice steady and clear. "We've trained for this," he said, his words carrying both reassurance and resolve. Every simulation, every drill, it was all leading to today. The galaxy is watching us right now. Let's show them what humanity is made of. His speech earned nods of agreement from the men and women around him. These soldiers weren't just fighting for themselves. They were fighting for everyone back on Earth. The farmers, the teachers, the children who dreamed of futures free from fear. This wasn't about conquest or domination. It was about protecting their home. Back on Earth, Dr. Elena Carter sat in a secure underground facility, surrounded by monitors displaying real-time data from the star destroyers. Her hands moved swiftly across a keyboard, analyzing readings and making adjustments to the quantum propulsion engines that powered the fleet. Beside her, President Hayes watched intently, his expression a mix of pride and concern. "Do you think we're ready?" he asked quietly, breaking the silence. Carter looked up briefly, her tired eyes meeting his. "As ready as we'll ever be," she replied. "These ships are miracles of engineering, but they're only part of the equation. What really matters is the people operating them. Humans don't give up easily, that's our greatest strength." Hayes nodded, though doubt lingered in his mind. He had spent years preparing for this day, rallying nations to set aside their differences and unite under a single banner. It hadn't been easy. There were skeptics, naysayers, and even outright opponents who questioned the morality of building weapons capable of destroying entire planets. But Hayes understood something fundamental. Peace required strength. Without the ability to defend itself, Earth would remain vulnerable to exploitation. And so, he had pushed forward, driven by the belief that humanity deserved a place among the stars, not as victims but as equals. As news of Earth's transformation spread throughout the galaxy, reactions varied wildly. Some alien species marveled at humanity's ingenuity, seeing hope in their sudden rise. Others dismissed it as a fluke, convinced that the Varaxians would crush this upstart race without much effort. Still, whispers of admiration began to circulate. Stories of Earth's secret preparations reached oppressed civilizations, inspiring thoughts of rebellion against tyrannical regimes. In taverns and marketplaces across the cosmos, beings of all shapes and sizes gathered to discuss the implications of humanity's emergence. Could these fragile creatures truly challenge the mighty Varaxians, or would they crumble under pressure, as so many others had before? For the Varaxians, however, the situation grew increasingly dire. Admiral Zorak called an emergency meeting with his council, demanding answers. "How did they do it?" he barked, slamming his fist onto the conference table. "Where did they get this technology? Was it stolen? Reverse engineered, or did someone help them?" The room fell silent. No one dared to speak. Finally, a senior scientist stepped forward hesitantly. "Our analysis suggests that the technology is entirely original," he admitted. "It doesn't match any known designs in our database. If I had to guess, I'd say it's the result of decades of research and development, perhaps accelerated by recent breakthroughs in quantum mechanics." Zorak's jaw tightened. Original technology? From humans? The idea was almost offensive, yet there was no denying the evidence. Whatever path humanity had taken to reach this point, it was clear they had done so independently. That realization filled Zorak with a mixture of anger and grudging respect. Here was a species that refused to bow down, even when faced with overwhelming odds. Perhaps that was why they had succeeded where others had failed. Desperate for more information, Zorak ordered reconnaissance drones to approach Earth's star destroyers. Tiny probes darted through space, attempting to gather intelligence on the mysterious vessels. Their mission was short-lived. Within moments of entering range, the drones were detected by Earth's defense systems. Plasma beams lashed out from the star destroyers, vaporizing the probes instantly. Each destroyed drone sent a clear message: humanity was prepared, and they wouldn't tolerate intrusion. On board the Aegis, Captain Drake watched the skirmish unfold with grim satisfaction. "They're testing us," he muttered to his second-in-command, Commander Lisa Torres. "Let's make sure they don't like what they find." Torres nodded, her fingers flying over a control panel as she coordinated the response. "Shields at maximum capacity," she reported. "Weapons primed and ready. Shall we send a little greeting their way?" Drake smirked. "Let's not keep them waiting." A low-frequency pulse emitted from the Aegis, rippling outward like a shockwave. The pulse disrupted the remaining drones' navigation systems, sending them spiraling off course. When the signal faded, the Vraxian fleet received a transmission from Earth. It was brief but unmistakably firm. "You came uninvited. Leave now, or prepare yourselves." The message sent shockwaves through the Vraxian ranks. Never before had anyone spoken to them with such audacity. Diplomats scrambled to draft responses, while military strategists debated whether retaliation was wise. Zorak, however, remained frozen in thought. This wasn't just a tactical challenge, it was a psychological one. Humanity's boldness unsettled him, forcing him to question everything he thought he knew about warfare and diplomacy. As hours turned into days, the standoff continued. The Vraxian fleet maintained its position, unwilling to retreat but equally afraid to engage directly. Earth's leaders used this time to fortify their defenses further, deploying additional satellites and launching smaller support vessels to patrol the perimeter. Civilians on Earth, unaware of the full extent of the crisis, went about their lives as usual. Schools held classes, factories churned out supplies, and families gathered for meals. Yet behind the scenes, preparations for potential conflict intensified. Bunkers and command centers around the globe, scientists worked tirelessly to refine existing technologies. New algorithms were written to enhance the AI guiding Earth's fighter pilots. Advanced shielding systems were installed on each star destroyer, capable of withstanding sustained attacks. Even experimental weapons, once deemed too risky for deployment, were brought online in case they were needed. Every resource available to humanity was poured into ensuring that Earth's fleet remained unmatched. Dr. Carter played a crucial role in these efforts, her expertise invaluable in troubleshooting last-minute issues. Late one night, as she reviewed schematics for the plasma cannons, she paused to reflect on the enormity of what they were doing. Humanity was stepping onto a stage far larger than anything it had ever imagined. Success meant securing a future among the stars. Failure meant extinction. The weight of responsibility pressed heavily on her shoulders, but she found solace in the knowledge that she wasn't alone. Countless others shared her determination, united by a common goal. President Hayes, too, felt the burden of leadership. Addressing a closed-door session of world leaders via holographic link, he emphasized the importance of unity. "This isn't just about Earth," he declared. "It's about proving that we can stand together, not just as nations but as a species. If we falter now, we lose more than a battle. We lose our chance to shape the destiny of the galaxy." His words resonated deeply, galvanizing those present. Decisions were made swiftly, resources allocated efficiently, and plans refined to perfection. Humanity's collective willpower became a force unto itself, driving them forward even as uncertainty loomed large. For the Vraxians, the PA, the standoff between Earth's star destroyers and the Vraxian fleet stretched into its third week, each side locked in a tense game of patience and posturing. For the Vraxians, every passing day brought new challenges. Their once unshakable confidence was crumbling under the weight of uncertainty. Admiral Zorak, who had always prided himself on his strategic brilliance, found himself questioning every decision. The alien council aboard the flagship debated endlessly, their arguments growing louder and more desperate as they struggled to find a way forward. Should they launch an attack, attempt negotiations, or retreat entirely and regroup? Each option carried risks that seemed insurmountable. On board the Aegis, Captain Marcus Drake maintained a calm demeanor, though he knew the situation could escalate at any moment. He understood the psychological toll this prolonged stalemate was taking, not just on the Vraxians but also on his own crew, while humanity had prepared for years, waiting for the day when they would face an extraterrestrial threat. No amount of training could fully prepare them for the reality of staring down an enemy fleet. Tensions ran high, but Drake made sure to keep morale intact. Every morning he addressed his team with short, inspiring speeches, reminding them why they were there. "We're not just defending Earth," he told them one day. "We're showing the universe what it means to stand your ground." Drake's words resonated deeply with his crew, many of whom had left families behind to serve aboard the Star Destroyers. Among them was Lieutenant Sarah Chen, a young pilot whose skills in simulated combat drills had earned her a spot on the elite squadron tasked with protecting the fleet. Chen spent hours perfecting her maneuvers, pushing herself harder than ever before. She knew the stakes. If the Vraxians decided to strike, Earth's survival might depend on pilots like her. During rare moments of downtime, she thought about her parents back home, wondering if they were proud of her. "If we win this," she whispered to herself, "I'll make sure they know how much they mean to me." Meanwhile, Dr. Elena Carter continued her work in the underground facility, fine-tuning the quantum propulsion engines and plasma cannons that powered the Star Destroyers. Her days blurred together, filled with endless calculations and adjustments. Despite her exhaustion, she refused to slow down. Humanity's fate rested on the reliability of these systems, and she wouldn't let anything slip through the cracks. Late one night, President Hayes visited the lab, bringing coffee and words of encouragement. "You're doing incredible work, Elena," he said softly, "but you need rest. You can't push yourself forever." Carter smiled weakly, rubbing her tired eyes. "I'll sleep when this is over, sir. Not a minute sooner." Hayes nodded, knowing better than to argue. He admired her dedication, even as it worried him. Without people like Carter, none of this would have been possible. But the strain of carrying such responsibility was evident in her face. As the days passed, whispers of Earth's defiance spread further across the galaxy. Alien species who had long lived under the shadow of the Vraxian Empire began to take notice. Some saw hope in humanity's sudden rise, viewing them as potential allies against oppression. Others remained skeptical, convinced that the Vraxians would crush this upstart race without much effort. Yet the mere possibility of resistance ignited conversations in taverns, marketplaces, and diplomatic chambers throughout the cosmos. Oppressed civilizations dared to dream of freedom, inspired by the idea that even the smallest voices could challenge tyranny. For the Vraxians, however, the situation grew increasingly dire. Admiral Zorak called another emergency meeting with his council, demanding answers. "How are they holding out so long?" he demanded, pacing back and forth. "They should be panicking by now. We've never faced an adversary like this before." One of his advisors hesitated before speaking. Perhaps they're not afraid because they believe in something greater than themselves. Their unity, it's unnatural. Most species fracture under pressure. But humans? They seem to grow stronger. Zorak clenched his fists, frustration boiling inside him. Unity. Belief. These concepts were foreign to the Vraxians, who ruled through fear and control. How could they counteract something they didn't understand? It was maddening. Desperate for a breakthrough, Zorak ordered a small contingent of ships to test Earth's defenses. If nothing else, he reasoned, They could gather valuable intelligence while probing for weaknesses. Under cover of darkness, 3 Varaxian cruisers slipped closer to Earth's orbit, their engines running silently to avoid detection. When they reached firing range, they unleashed a barrage of energy blasts, targeting one of the smaller support vessels patrolling the perimeter. The attack caught the human crew off guard, but only for a moment. Alarms blared across the star. Destroyer fleet as automated defense systems sprang into action. Plasma beams lashed out from the larger ships, intercepting the incoming fire and neutralizing the threat. Simultaneously, Lieutenant Chen and her squadron launched from the hangar bay, their sleek fighters cutting through space with precision. Within minutes, the Vraxian cruisers found themselves surrounded, their shields failing under relentless assault. Chen led the charge, her fighter weaving gracefully between enemy vessels as she fired plasma bursts with deadly accuracy. "Stay focused," she shouted over the comms, her voice steady despite the chaos around her. One by one, the Vraxian ships fell, their hulls breached and engines crippled. By the time reinforcements arrived, it was too late. The skirmish was already over. News of the victory spread quickly, both within Earth's ranks and beyond. On board the Aegis, Captain Drake congratulated his crew, praising their quick thinking and coordination. "That's how it's done," he said, clapping Chen on the shoulder. "Let this be a lesson to anyone who thinks we're easy targets." Back on Earth, celebrations erupted as citizens learned of the successful defense. Social media platforms lit up with messages of pride and gratitude as people shared videos of the battle captured by satellites. President Hayes delivered a global address thanking the brave men and women who had risked everything to protect their world. "Today we prove that humanity cannot be intimidated," he declared. "We are survivors, and we will continue to stand together, no matter what challenges lie ahead." The psychological impact of the skirmish rippled throughout the galaxy. Alien empires, accustomed to bullying weaker worlds, began reconsidering their strategies. Fearful whispers spread among star systems. If humans could hold their own against the mighty Vraxians, what might they do next? Even the Vraxians themselves couldn't ignore the shift in galactic opinion. Their empire, built on fear and control, began to crumble under the weight of humanity's courage. Admiral Zorak, humiliated by the loss, retreated to his quarters to reflect. He stared at the holographic display showing Earth's star destroyers, his mind racing with possibilities. Perhaps negotiation was the only viable path forward. But how could he negotiate with a species that refused to show weakness? How could he salvage what remained of the Vraxian Empire? As the days turned into weeks, the Vraxians' resolve wavered. Morale plummeted among their ranks, with some crew members openly questioning whether continuing the mission was worth the risk. Rumors circulated that other alien factions were secretly contacting Earth, offering alliances and support. Some even pledged troops, eager to join forces against the Vraxians. Humanity's reputation shifted overnight, from insignificant primitives to formidable defenders of freedom. For the first time, the Vraxians realized they faced an enemy unlike any other, one that refused to back down. Admiral Zorak, once confident in his superiority, now felt the full weight of his predicament. Humanity had forced them to confront a harsh truth. They were no longer the undisputed rulers of the galaxy. Little did anyone realize, however, that this was only the beginning of a story that would redefine the balance of power in the universe and cement humanity's place among the stars. The aftermath of the skirmish left both humanity and the Vraxians at a crossroads. For Earth, the victory was a morale booster, a clear demonstration that their years of preparation had paid off. The star destroyers had proven their worth, and the pilot's skill had silenced any lingering doubts about humanity's ability to defend itself. Yet Captain Marcus Drake knew better than to celebrate too soon. Victory in a single engagement didn't mean the war was over. If anything, it signaled the beginning of a much larger conflict, one that would test not just humanity's technology, but its resolve. On board the Aegis, the crew worked tirelessly to repair minor damages sustained during the battle. Lieutenant Sarah Chen sat in the hangar bay, inspecting her fighter for signs of wear. Though her ship had performed flawlessly, She couldn't shake the feeling that they were only scratching the surface of what was to come. Around her, technicians buzzed with activity, replacing plasma conduits and recalibrating targeting systems. The mood was focused but tense. No one wanted to let their guard down, not when the Vraxians still loomed menacingly in orbit. Drake walked among his team, offering words of encouragement. "We did good out there," he said, stopping beside Chen. "But don't get comfortable. They'll be back, and next time, they won't hold back." Chen nodded, her jaw tightening. "Understood. Sir, we'll be ready." Meanwhile, aboard the Vraxian flagship, Admiral Zorak struggled to maintain order. The failed assault had dealt a severe blow to morale, and whispers of dissent spread like wildfire through the ranks. Some officers questioned Zorak's leadership, accusing him of underestimating humanity. Others openly suggested retreating entirely, arguing that Earth was more trouble than it was worth. Zorak listened to these murmurs with growing frustration, knowing that losing control of his fleet would spell disaster for the Vraxian Empire. In an attempt to regain authority, Zorak convened another council meeting. Standing before holographic projections of Earth's star destroyers, he addressed his advisors with forced confidence. "This is not the end," he declared. "Humanity may have surprised us, but they are still outnumbered. Their resources are limited, while ours are vast. We simply need to adapt our strategy." One advisor, a seasoned diplomat named Trelka, raised a skeptical eyebrow. "Adapt? How? Every move we've made so far has been met with resistance. Perhaps it's time to consider alternatives." Zorak frowned. "Such as?" "Negotiation," Trelka replied bluntly. "If we cannot defeat them militarily, perhaps we can find common ground diplomatically. After all, even humans must value peace over destruction." The room fell silent as Zorak considered the suggestion. Negotiating with humanity went against everything the Vraxians stood for. Their empire thrived on dominance, not compromise. Yet faced with mounting losses and dwindling options, Zorak reluctantly agreed to explore the possibility. He ordered his communications team to draft a message to Earth, proposing a ceasefire and opening channels for dialogue. When the transmission reached Earth, President Hayes gathered his advisors in a secure bunker to discuss the proposal. Among them was Dr. Elena Carter, who had been monitoring the situation closely. Despite her exhaustion, she remained sharp, analyzing every detail of the Vraxian message. "It's a bluff," she said after reviewing the data. "They're trying to buy time. Look at their energy reserves, they're running low. If we push now, we could cripple their fleet." Hayes leaned back in his chair, considering her words. "But if we refuse to negotiate, we risk escalating the conflict further. We've shown strength, but diplomacy might save lives in the long run." The debate continued late into the night, with arguments bouncing back and forth. Ultimately, Hayes decided to respond cautiously. In a carefully worded message, he accepted the Vraxians' offer of dialogue, but on Earth's terms. "You came uninvited," the message read. "If you wish to leave peacefully, do so now. Otherwise, prepare yourselves. Humanity does not fear negotiation, but we will not bow to threats." The response sent shockwaves through the Vraxian command. Never before had anyone spoken to them with such audacity. Zorak clenched his fists, torn between anger and reluctant admiration. Humanity's defiance was infuriating, yet it also intrigued him. Could there truly be room for cooperation between their species? Or was this merely a delaying tactic as preparations for negotiations began? News of the proposed talks spread throughout the galaxy. Alien empires watched with bated breath, curious to see how humanity would handle the situation. Some viewed the development as a sign of weakness, believing that Earth was backing down. Others saw it as a clever maneuver, designed to expose cracks in the Vraxian Empire. Either way, the stage was set for a historic moment, one that could reshape the balance of power in the universe. Back on Earth, President Hayes prepared for the summit with meticulous care. He assembled a delegation led by Dr. Carter and several high-ranking military officials, including Captain Drake. Each member of the team brought unique expertise to the table, ensuring that humanity entered the negotiations from a position of strength. Before departing for the neutral station where the talks would take place, Hayes addressed the group privately. "This isn't just about us," he reminded them. "It's about proving that humanity deserves a seat at the galactic table. Show them respect, but don't let them manipulate us. We've earned this chance, don't waste it." Drake nodded, his expression serious. "Understood, Mr. President. We'll make sure they know exactly who they're dealing with." The neutral station, located in a remote corner of space, served as a neutral ground for the negotiations. As the human delegation arrived aboard a sleek transport vessel, they were greeted by representatives from various alien factions, many of whom had secretly supported Earth's rise. Some approached the humans eagerly, offering praise and congratulations. Others kept their distance, wary of being associated with a species that had defied the Vraxians. When the talks finally began, the atmosphere was tense, but respectful. Admiral Zorak led the Vraxian delegation, flanked by Trelka and several other senior officers. Across the table sat President Hayes, Dr. Carter, and Captain Drake, each radiating quiet confidence. As the discussions unfolded, it became clear that the Vraxians were desperate to salvage their reputation. They offered vague promises of peace and cooperation, hoping to placate humanity without conceding too much. Hayes listened patiently, allowing Zorak to speak uninterrupted. When it was his turn to address the room, however, he wasted no time cutting to the heart of the matter. "Your empire has built its power on fear," he said, his voice calm but firm. "But fear is a weak foundation. Humanity values strength, yes, but also unity and fairness. If you want peace, prove that you respect those values. Otherwise, we'll settle this the hard way." The room fell silent as Hayes's words sank in. Even Zorak seemed taken aback by the president's directness. For the first time, the Vraxians realized that humanity wasn't interested in empty gestures or half measures. They wanted genuine change, and they were willing to fight for it. As the negotiations dragged on, alliances began to form outside the conference room. Alien species that had once feared the Vraxians now flocked to Earth's banner, eager to join forces against tyranny. Secret meetings took place in corridors and private chambers, as oppressed civilizations plotted their next moves. Humanity's courage inspired others to take a stand, creating a ripple effect that threatened to destabilize the Vraxian Empire completely. For Zorak, the realization hit hard. His people were losing, not just militarily but ideologically. The very principles upon which the Vraxian Empire had been built were crumbling beneath the weight of humanity's defiance. As he returned to his quarters that evening, he stared out at the stars, wondering how it had all gone so wrong. Had they underestimated humanity, or had they simply failed to understand the power of hope? Little did anyone realize, however, that the true turning point was yet to come. Back on Earth, preparations continued at a feverish pace. New technologies were developed, new alliances forged, and new strategies devised. Humanity wasn't content to rest on its laurels. It was determined to secure its place among the stars, no matter the cost. And so, as the galaxy held its breath, waiting to see how the story would unfold, one thing became abundantly clear. Courage is contagious. Where others faltered, humans stood tall. In doing so, they proved that sometimes the greatest weapon isn't firepower, it's the refusal to give up. As the negotiations continued aboard the neutral station, tension simmered beneath the surface. The Vraxians, desperate to salvage their crumbling empire, clung to every word spoken by President Hayes and his delegation. Admiral Zorak sat rigidly at the head of the table, his expression unreadable but his eyes betraying a mix of frustration and unease. Across from him, Hayes exuded calm authority, flanked by Dr. Elena Carter and Captain Marcus Drake, both of whom radiated quiet confidence. The contrast between the two sides was stark. Where the Vraxians projected arrogance tinged with desperation, humanity embodied resilience tempered by determination. The talks dragged on for days, each session revealing more cracks in the Vraxian facade. When pressed about their intentions, Zorak's responses were evasive, filled with vague promises and hollow assurances. It became increasingly clear that the Vraxians had no intention of relinquishing their dominance. They merely sought to buy time to regroup and plan another assault. Hayes saw through their tactics immediately, but instead of calling them out directly, he chose a subtler approach. "We're willing to listen," he said during one particularly tense exchange. "But actions speak louder than words. Show us you mean what you say." Zorak bristled at the implication but couldn't argue. The weight of humanity's star destroyers loomed large over the proceedings, a constant reminder of Earth's newfound power. For the first time in centuries, the Vraxians found themselves negotiating from a position of weakness. Their usual intimidation tactics fell flat against a species that refused to be cowed. As the summit wore on, alien representatives from other factions began openly siding with Earth, offering support and pledging resources. These gestures further isolated the Vraxians, eroding whatever credibility they had left. Back on Earth, preparations reached a fever pitch. New fighter squadrons were trained, advanced shielding systems were installed on the star destroyers, and experimental weapons were tested around the clock. Civilians rallied behind their leaders, united by a shared sense of purpose. Social media buzzed with messages of gratitude for the brave men and women defending their planet, while schools held assemblies to honor the sacrifices made by soldiers and scientists alike. Humanity wasn't just preparing for war. It was building a legacy, proving to itself and the galaxy that it deserved respect. Dr. Carter, despite her exhaustion, remained at the forefront of these efforts. Her lab became a hub of innovation, where breakthroughs happened daily. She worked alongside young engineers and physicists, mentoring them as they pushed the boundaries of human ingenuity. One evening, as she reviewed schematics for an upgraded plasma cannon, she paused to reflect on how far they'd come. Just years ago, humanity had been an insignificant blip on the galactic radar. Now, they were shaping the future of the universe. "This isn't just about surviving," she murmured to herself. "It's about thriving." Meanwhile, aboard the Aegis, Captain Drake kept his crew battle-ready. Training drills intensified, simulating scenarios that grew progressively more challenging. Pilots like Lieutenant Sarah Chen honed their skills to perfection, knowing that the next engagement might determine the fate of their species. During briefings, Drake reminded his team of the stakes. "We've shown the galaxy what we're capable of," he said during one session, "but don't let that make you complacent. Every decision we make matters, not just for us, but for everyone back home." The turning point came unexpectedly. Midway through the negotiations, intelligence reports revealed that the Vraxians had secretly dispatched reinforcements, 3 massive dreadnoughts en route to Earth's orbit. Admiral Zorak denied any knowledge of the move when confronted, but the evidence was irrefutable. Humanity's patience, already stretched thin, snapped. President Hayes rose from his seat, his voice cutting through the room like steel. "You lied to us," he said, his tone icy. "If this is how you conduct diplomacy, then there's nothing left to discuss." With that, the summit dissolved into chaos. Alien delegates scrambled to take sides, while the Vraxian delegation retreated, hastily to their flagship. Back aboard the Aegis, alarms blared as sensors detected the incoming dreadnoughts. Captain Drake wasted no time issuing orders. "All hands to battle stations," he barked. "Prepare for engagement." The ensuing battle was unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. Earth's star destroyers formed a defensive perimeter around the planet, their plasma cannons glowing ominously as they awaited the enemy's arrival. When the Vraxian dreadnoughts entered firing range, the sky erupted in bursts of light and energy. Plasma beams lashed out, colliding with shields and hulls. In dazzling displays of destruction, fighter squadrons darted through the chaos, their pilots executing maneuvers so precise they seemed almost choreographed. Lieutenant Chen led the charge, her fighter weaving gracefully between enemy vessels as she unleashed volley after volley of plasma fire. Her squadron followed closely, targeting weak points in the dreadnought's armor. Despite being outnumbered, the humans fought with unmatched ferocity, driven by the knowledge that failure meant annihilation. Slowly, but surely, the tide of the battle turned in their favor. One dreadnought exploded in a fiery blaze, its wreckage tumbling toward Earth's atmosphere. Another suffered critical damage, retreating hastily before it could be destroyed entirely. By the time the final dreadnought surrendered, the Vraxian fleet was in disarray. News of the victory spread rapidly, igniting celebrations across Earth. Cities erupted in cheers as citizens took to the streets, waving flags and chanting slogans of pride. Social media platforms overflowed with messages of gratitude for the brave men and women who had risked everything to protect their world. Even skeptics who doubted the feasibility of Earth's space program found themselves cheering alongside believers. Humanity had proven not just its strength but its unity, a rare feat in a fractured galaxy. For the Vraxians, defeat marked the beginning of the end. Admiral Zorak, humiliated and demoralized, called an emergency council meeting aboard his flagship. The once mighty Vraxian Empire was crumbling, its reputation tarnished beyond repair. Alien civilizations that had once feared the Vraxians now saw them as weakened and vulnerable. Revolts broke out within their territories, fueled by stories of humanity's defiance. Oppressed species rose up against their oppressors, inspired by Earth's example. In a desperate bid to salvage what remained of their empire, the Vraxians formally surrendered. A transmission broadcast across all frequencies announced their unconditional capitulation. To the people of Earth, the message read, "We acknowledge your strength and resolve. We offer peace and pledge to honor your sovereignty moving forward." It was a bitter pill for the Vraxians to swallow, but there was no alternative. Humanity had forced them to confront a harsh truth. Fear alone could not sustain an empire. Earth's response was measured yet firm. President Hayes addressed the galaxy in a historic speech delivered live from the neutral station. "Today marks the dawn of a new era," he declared, "an era defined not by fear but by cooperation. We invite all peaceful species to join us in building a better future, one based on mutual respect and shared prosperity." His words resonated deeply, earning applause from alien delegates and citizens alike. In the weeks that followed, humanity solidified its place among the stars. Star destroyers patrolled the galaxy, serving as symbols of protection rather than aggression. Alien ambassadors secretly contacted Earth, offering alliances and support. Some even pledged troops eager to join forces against remnants of the Vraxian regime. Earth flourished under this newfound unity, its people embracing their role as guardians of the cosmos. Captain Drake and his crew became legends, celebrated not just for their victories, but for embodying the indomitable spirit of humanity. Schools taught lessons about resilience and unity, reminding future generations of the sacrifices made to secure their place among the stars. Meanwhile, Dr. Carter and her team continued pushing the boundaries of science, ensuring that humanity remained at the forefront of technological advancement. And so, the galaxy learned a valuable lesson. Courage is contagious. Where others faltered, humans stood tall. In doing so, they proved that sometimes the greatest weapon isn't firepower, it's the refusal to give up. Humanity had taken its first step into the galactic stage, and it would never look back.